The parade of humiliation stretched from the steps of the Imperial Palace to the execution platform floating above Arcane Prime. A billion alien eyes watched in silence as 3 humans, chained, bloodied, and unbowed, were marched through the heart of the Galactic Empire. Overhead, banners unfurled, gold and obsidian, marked with the twin talons of House XR. The announcer's voice echoed across the atmosphere and into the stars via hyperwave relays. Let all witness the end of the Terran rebellion. Today, the Empire reminds the galaxy, resistance is not tolerated. The crowd hissed and clicked their approval. General Alyssa Rowe walked to the front. Her eyes, steel gray and calculating, swept across the crowd. She held her head high despite the collar digging into her neck. The bruises were real. So was the pain. But what mattered couldn't be seen. Behind her trudged General Marcus Halberd, taller and broader than the others, stripped of his armored exosuit, but still walking like he wore it. His hands bled from plasma cuffs, yet his eyes burned with fury. At the rear came General Tavi Okoye, slim, quiet, watching the skies. She'd been silent since their capture, but every tick of her gaze was measured. She was counting something. Above them, on the command balcony, Overlord Exar leaned forward with a sneer. 8 feet tall, draped in ceremonial armor, the Varkeen noble epitomized the arrogance of a civilization that hadn't lost a war in 10,000 years. Humans, Exar said, are a brief stain, a backwater species that mistook defiance for strength. He gestured to the platform, where execution pylons hummed with violet energy. 3 of their finest, caught in a single stroke. The rebellion ends with them. Rowe glanced sideways. A flick of her eye. Okoye responded with the faintest blink. The timing was still good. Everything was on schedule. 6 months earlier, the War Council met in a subterranean bunker beneath the ruins of Berlin. Humanity was losing badly. 24 colonies had already been glassed. Earth's orbital defense grid was a patchwork joke, but still the resistance held. It's not enough to hurt them, General Rowe had said. We have to make them bleed in public. Halberd slammed his fist on the table. You're talking about surrender. I'm talking about bait. Okoye had nodded. We give them exactly what they want us. A plan was born, not of desperation, but of cold, furious intent. The 3 generals would allow themselves to be captured. The trap would require absolute coordination. Multiple contingencies. Sabotage laced across infrastructure. A galaxy watching. Sacrifice was a given. Now, Rowe stood atop the execution platform, the guillotine's hum rising like a hymn of death. She looked at Exithar, who smiled as though he'd already won. Perhaps he had, once. Any last words? The Varkeen overlord asked. Rowe stepped forward. She drew in a breath. Her voice rang out, not just in the arena, but across the entire galactic network. We are Terrans. You think this is surrender. You think you've won. You think you understand us. But you don't understand the trap you've walked into. There was a sharp intake of breath from the audience. The pylons began to stutter. Exathar frowned. What is this? Okoye's implant activated. A silent pulse, carried on the same network that broadcast the execution. A fragment of code, buried in Empire relays months ago, came alive. Power across the execution ring flickered. Thousands of satellites, thought inert or damaged, aligned in high orbit. Warp relays collapsed. Anti-ship defense batteries, supposedly loyal to the Empire, turned inward. Ships emerged from behind Varkeen's dark moon. Human stealth fleets, masked by repurposed alien cloaking tech, decloaked in perfect formation. Halberd grinned. Nice timing. Across the galaxy, rebel cells activated. Human-aligned alien species rose up. The Empire, so vast it thought itself eternal, had missed one thing. The humans had planned to lose. They had planned to be caught, to be paraded, to lure every eye to one stage. Because while the Empire watched its own power celebrated, it wasn't watching its flanks. The execution pylon sparked, then died with a hiss of overloaded circuits. The silence that followed was unnatural. On Varkeen Prime, homeworld of the Galactic Empire, nothing ever stopped. But now, The execution broadcast cut to static. The power grid rippled. For one precious second, the Empire blinked. General Tavi Okoye opened her eyes. She had been still for hours, restrained in magnetic binds, lips sealed. But in her mind, a storm raged. Subroutines ran on embedded implants, encrypted so deeply they might as well have been part of her DNA. The moment Rose's speech hit the right cadence, "You don't understand the trap," her neural spike launched its payload. It was not a virus. It was a blueprint. The Empire's entire execution broadcast network was tied into its command lattice. Every relay, tower, and station that had been seized to broadcast the human generals' deaths now served as entry points. Okoye's code rode those waves like fire through dry grass. Deep within the Empire's neural net, security demons screeched and collapsed. Overlord Exadar rose from his throne in fury. Security cut their tongues out. His guards hesitated. The pylons had powered down, and several of their HUDs began flickering. Then their rifles, normally voice-synced to Empire commands, refused to fire. Rose smiled. "You're late." From the sky above, a thunderclap cracked the clouds. Something massive entered atmosphere, silent, black, and unlike any ship the Varkeen had catalogued. Humanity's secret fleet, Fleet Phantom, descended. 10 dreadnoughts, coated in adaptive mesh that bent sensor data and light itself, flickered into view. They'd hidden behind Varkeen's moon, piggybacking off its gravity well for weeks. Old Empire scanners, tuned to traditional engine signatures, hadn't even registered them. Now they struck. Orbital cannons hummed to life and fired in synchronized bursts. The Empire's orbital defense stations, reprogrammed weeks ago by Okoye's code fragments, responded, not to Imperial command, but to hers. Energy lances slashed across the sky, carving fire trails into the heavens. Empire ships scrambled, but too slowly. They weren't prepared. They thought they had one. On the execution platform, Halberd moved first. Still cuffed, he threw his shoulder into the nearest guard, using the alien's bulk as a shield. A second guard fired, but his weapon sputtered. Ro caught the rifle as it fell and snapped it up in one fluid motion. She fired once, then twice. The Varkeen fell. "Cut us loose," she ordered. Okoye reached down, retrieving a data spike from a hidden slit in her uniform. She jammed it into a maintenance port in the floor. The cuffs snapped open. Armor compartments, long buried beneath the platform in preparation for this moment, emerged with pneumatic hisses. 3 suits, custom-built, vacuum-rated, and tailored to each general, rose into place. Halberd strapped in without ceremony. "Damn, I missed this weight." From the crowd, panic erupted. Civilians screamed. Noble delegates ran, pushing past their own honor guards. The illusion of Imperial control cracked in real time, broadcast, ironically, on the very same network meant to demonstrate the Empire's strength. Fleet Phantom wasn't alone. Across dozens of systems, coded pulses hidden in broadcast infrastructure activated. Rebel cells, human and alien alike, received the go-ahead. Gravity wells destabilized. Fuel depots ignited. Subjugated planets erupted in carefully synchronized uprisings. Earth hadn't just planned to survive. It had planned to ignite a revolution. Back in orbit, the Empire's Central Command AI, Vault 1, issued kill orders to suppress the rebellion. But something was wrong. Its data feeds looped. Subroutines misfired. Okoye had predicted its responses down to the nanosecond. // command error, redundant input. // integrity check failed. // fleet authority override, Terran's signature detected. Vault 1 collapsed in a logical paradox. Okoye's override keys, encoded into signal masks, mimicked Varkeen noble lineages with 98.7% certainty. Enough to confuse. Enough to blind. General Ro, now armored, stood beside her comrades atop the burning platform. Behind her, the Empire's palace burned. "We got 5 minutes before they deploy reinforcements from the Citadel," Okoye said, still wired into battlefield systems. "That's all we need," Ro replied. She raised her rifle toward the Citadel's highest tower. "Let's take their throne." The rebellion had begun not with fanfare, nor with a decisive battle, but with 3 prisoners, a staged execution, and a signal broadcast into the heart of tyranny. And across the galaxy, species long shackled to the Empire stirred with new purpose. The Empire had forced its enemies to kneel. Now those enemies had risen. The throne room of the Galactic Empire had not fallen in 10,000 years. Built from blackstone quarried from the dead world of Valshura, lined with blood gold etched in the names of 1,000 conquered species, it was not designed to be breached. It had been designed to intimidate. Now, smoke poured through its shattered gates. Automated defense turrets sparked and spun helplessly, their targeting logic scrambled by Okoye's sabotage. The great banners of House Exithar hung tattered, their imperial sigils flickering as power bled from the palace grid. General Marcus Halberd walked through the breach first, boots crunching over shattered obsidian. His armor was scorched. His rifle hummed low, overcharged and ready. Behind him, Ro and Okoye moved like phantoms, silent, efficient, unstoppable. The last of Exathar's elite guards stood at the base of the throne dais, 12 Varkeen brutes in ceremonial armor, standing firm despite the chaos around them. Halberd cracked his knuckles. Finally, a real fight. Outside the palace, Fleet Phantom was holding the high orbit, but the cost was rising. Human dreadnoughts, outgunned and outnumbered, used hit-and-run tactics with brutal precision. Their strikes were coordinated by Ro's remote directives. An AI model trained on her combat logic ran the fleet in her absence, a digital extension of her ruthless mind. "Lose the Valor's edge, but draw fire away from the southern pole," Ro ordered through her command channel. "Send the Roanoke in on a spiraling descent. Make them think it's a crash." The Roanoke didn't crash. It released a volley of orbital kinetic penetrators, 1-ton rods of tungsten accelerated to relativistic speeds. Each one struck with the force of small nuke, targeting underground communications bunkers and power nodes. Below, planetary shields flickered and died. The Empire's command net had gone dark. Inside the throne room, the last guards fell. Halberd's armor was dented. His knuckles bled, but none of the Varkeen stood. Overlord Exathar cowered at the top of the dais, clutching a scepter encoded with his family's security keys. His once imposing figure had shrunk, hunched with disbelief, limbs trembling as if realizing for the first time that he could bleed. He rasped, "You're just humans." Ro climbed the steps slowly. Her rifle hung by her side now. She didn't need it. "No," she said. "We're the future. You're a cautionary tale." Exathar snarled and raised the scepter, trying to activate a last-ditch failsafe, a planetary self-purge protocol. But nothing happened. Okoye was already there, holding the scepter's data crystal between 2 fingers, smiling faintly. "You should have changed your encryption. We cracked this weeks ago." With a hiss of static, every screen in the Empire's network came alive, showing not propaganda, but the truth. Human fleets carving through Imperial formations, alien rebellions erupting on a dozen worlds, and above all, the captured overlord brought low by the species he once called primitive. Across the galaxy, revolt became revolution. The Ret Hari, whose aquatic world had been mined to the brink of extinction, activated centuries of hidden weapon caches. The Yalari, once conscripted as slave engineers, shut down power grids on dozens of Imperial stations. Even factions within the Varkeen species, long oppressed by noble caste hierarchies, turned their weapons on their own rulers. For every planet that still resisted, Ro had prepared countermeasures. Tactical famine in supply nodes, gravity jammers to knock fleets off course, psychological warfare, hacked broadcasts of Varkeen nobles begging for mercy. The message was clear. Humanity had studied the Empire. Humanity had learned its playbook. And now, humanity was writing a new one. Okoye stood beside the shattered throne, watching Exeter grovel at Ro's feet. "What do we do with him?" Public execution? Halberd offered. No, Rose said. Too merciful. She leaned close to the overlord, voice low and lethal. We'll leave you alive. So every noble, every general, every vassal world sees what you became. A relic, a defeated tyrant, the last gasp of a dead empire. Exathar wailed as they turned away. Outside, the fires of rebellion glowed against Varkeen Prime sky. Ships rose like vultures from the horizon. Rebuilt Terran flags flew beside the banners of free alien worlds. Humanity had not come to rule. Not yet. But they had come to end the rule of monsters. Varkeen Prime burned for 7 days. The heart of the Galactic Empire, once the untouchable center of galactic power, was now a smoldering ruin, its once pristine towers scarred by orbital strikes, its palaces gutted by revolution, and its rulers scattered like ash in the wind. But the fire wasn't just literal. It was symbolic. It spread. Every broadcast node that had once paraded human captives now displayed a simple message. The Empire has fallen. Rise and choose your future. Across dozens of star systems that call ignited action, slave worlds staged revolts. Puppet governments collapsed. Imperial fleets without central command or leadership fractured, some fleeing, some surrendering, some turning their guns on each other in panic scramble for power. The galaxy was no longer held together by fear. It was unraveling, and humanity had pulled the thread. General Alyssa Rose stood on the scorched balcony of the Imperial Citadel, looking out at the world below. It was quiet now. The smoke still curled upward, but the fighting had stopped. Most of the Empire's command had either died or been captured. In their place, a joint delegation of resistance leaders, human and alien alike, had landed and begun setting up a provisional alliance. This was the dangerous part. Peace, Rose said softly, is always harder than war. Beside her, General Okoye worked at a holographic terminal, overseeing the transition of control protocols for Varkeen Prime's orbital defenses. We have 32 active uprisings still in progress, Okoye reported, but none directed at us. Word spreading. You killed the Empire's king. That makes you something close to a myth. Ro didn't smile. Let's make sure the myth doesn't become a monster. Elsewhere, aboard the Terran flagship Dawnbringer, General Marcus Halberd stood in the ship's central war room, surrounded by old friends and new allies. Yalari diplomats, Free Ret Hari flotilla captains, even a few Varkeen defectors, now bitter toward the aristocracy that had used them like fodder. The room was chaotic but focused. Strategy flowed now, not in orders but in cooperation. We're not building an empire, Halberd reminded the room. We're building a coalition. Terran-led, sure, but equal partners. No chains, no overlords. One of the Ret Hari blinked their tri-lidded eyes. What are the systems still loyal to Exathar's bloodlines? Halberd grimaced. We give them a chance to surrender. A fair one. But if they refuse, we do what has to be done. Not for conquest. For stability. The Yalari nodded. Then we stand with Terra. Overlord Exathar was held in a stasis cell buried beneath what remained of the Imperial Spire. Not as a prisoner of war, but as a symbol. Ro visited once. He didn't speak. He just stared at her, eyes full of disbelief and impotent rage. I want you to live long enough to see statues fall, she told him. Long enough to watch your name scraped from the records, your people liberated, your empire remembered only as a warning. She paused at the door. That's what humans do, Exathar. We survive. We learn. And when we fight, her voice dropped to a whisper, we don't stop until we win. Within 2 weeks, the Provisional Coalition was born. Not perfect, not without arguments or distrust, but real. They called it the Accord of Dawn, signed aboard the Dawnbringer, under the light of Varkeen Prime's dying sun. Human generals and alien leaders alike pledged unity not just in rebellion, but in rebuilding. Reconstruction fleets were dispatched. Relief vessels landed on worlds once starved by imperial decree. The shattered trade routes were reopened, this time fairly, without tribute or blood. And for the first time in centuries, thousands of planets saw a future not dictated by fear, but by choice. On Earth, when the news reached the people, there was no celebration like the old wars. No fireworks, no parades, only quiet awe. 3 generals had vanished into the void, captured, condemned, executed, or so it seemed. And yet they returned, not just alive, but victorious, bearers of a broken crown they never wanted, and a new age they never expected to lead. In the private quarters of the Dawnbringer, Ro, Halberd, and Okoye sat at a simple metal table. No armor, no weapons, just 3 humans who had fought the impossible war and won. "We didn't do this alone," Okoye said. "We never could have," Halberd agreed. "But we lit the match." Ro looked out the viewport, at the stars now glittering with the lights of free ships and hopeful signals. "No more emperors," she said. The other 2 nodded. "No more chains,